think if you want to maximize the chance of having an L4 offer, that might be a good idea. I think what Grace did is actually more senior. So the setup that Grace decided for herself, like you spoke as a person who knows far beyond standard boxes.
Welcome, everybody, to a live mentorship session on system design. Okay, so we're going to get into today. This is what we're doing, and this is how it's going to work. We're going to introduce ourselves briefly. Then we're going to do some live coaching and mentorship. So we don't know if this is going to take 30 minutes or 50 minutes, but Dima, who is our resident wizard, in terms of system design, is going to do his thing. And Grace, who is a budding rock star in system design, is going to do her thing. And however long it takes is however long it takes. So the event might go over a little bit, but we want to make sure that we reserve some actual good amount of time for Q&A. So after we're done with Q&A, we'll just have a brief outro. No AMAs today, but after the system design guide is out, part 1's coming out next week. And after all 4 parts are out, we're going to do a talk back event with the core contributors. Both of these people here are core contributors, so they might be there. So I hope that's clear. Again, Pankil, you're part of the panels now. I don't know if it gets you off here, but okay. Intros. Hi, I'm Kevin Landucci. I am the creator of the best system design guide in the world for senior engineers. And these are 2 core contributors to that project, Grace and Dima. Whoever wants to start with introducing themselves, take it away.
I think I'll go because I think Dima has a bit more to say on his background than me. I am relatively junior. I've been at Amazon for 2 years, and my background before that, just so everyone kind of knows my background, I studied Arabic, was in the army for several years, and then went through a boot camp before I started at Amazon. And now I'm really using the system design interview, not just to prepare for these interviews, but really to become a better engineer. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you, Dima, as always, for giving me your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm Dima. I was at Google 07 to 11, before that a couple smaller companies, and then afterwards all over the place. I totally love giving back to the community, and I feel like my interview style was proven to be quite helpful in terms of showing people how it looks like, and whatever I can do to maximize utility, I will do it. So I'm more than happy to run the show in different flavors and types and forms. I totally love this. Let's make it happen. Let's make it useful. Let's make it fun. Let's do it.
Great. So yeah, I think Grace is being humble. So I will add a few things for Grace here. Grace and Dima did a session in November of 2022. There was a lot of comments online about this session, and after putting herself on the line in front of all these people in this event, Grace really worked really hard over the last several months. She did a dedicated coaching package with our company, interviewing.io. She was a core contributor to the system design event, but I think mainly it was hard work and community, like working with other engineers who were trying to also achieve a common goal with her. So yeah, let's get started. So in terms of just housekeeping, I might mess some stuff up, like Pankil being a panelist, because I've just never done this before. So just get ready for that. It'll be fine. Our goal is to help you all get better at system design 10 times faster than it would with other resources. This includes the system design guide, which is kind of like tangential to this. Once again, part 1 coming out on Thursday. Agreements. There's the talent, and then there's the audience. I'm not the talent. Grace and Dima are the talent. And there's the audience, and there's the talent. So the talent will give you what you give them. It's a conversation. So the more energy you put in the chat, the more energy you put in your questions, the more radical open-mindedness you can be thinking with, the better off the event will be. So that's the agreements for today. There are 3 bundles of skills. We talked about this last time, but this is a much better diagram. So I stole this straight from Harvard. Do something about it, Harvard. We got the first position here. In the first position, this is these are how you navigate an interaction. Okay, so no one today is going to be in the first position or the second position that's in the audience. I invite you all to be in the third position if you're in the audience, and to practice this skill of being from the third position is really, really valuable. So let's just talk about what we're not going to do and then talk about what we're going to do. So if you're in the first position, what you're just trying to do is like assert yourself, whether that means managing your own internal dialogue, whether that means letting other people know what you think, using your words to get stuff done. You're using your navigation, you're navigating from yourself. The second position is when you're navigating from somebody else's perspective that is in the dynamic with you. So Grace and Dima might be doing this today, but none of us are really going to be doing this today. So the third position is when you can observe and diagnose what's happening, adjust strategy, and make thoughtful choices about what to do next. There are two options here. Number one, are you an interviewer? If no, ignore this. If yes, think about Dima. Try to read his mind. If you can reverse engineer what he's doing. He's one of the best interviewers we have, and we have thousands. I've listened to so much of them that when you find somebody like this, if you're an interviewer, this is a masterclass on interviewing. Secondarily, if you're a candidate, this is a masterclass on being an interview candidate. Grace is a phenomenal communicator. She says things that other people don't have the language skills to be able to point out or formulate in her head and then say in a way that people can get. So again, if you're in the audience today, you're going to get what you give the talent. And the best way you can give to the talent is observe, diagnose what's happening, think about adjusting strategy, and make thoughtful choices about what to do next. And put all that in the chat. So, or rather the Word doc. So, okay, let's begin.
So to reiterate a bit on the intro we had before, I was thinking of what to ask you so that it's beneficial, useful, fun, and not too standard. And we're going to design something that part of me thinks should exist, but I don't think it does. But again, I'm not an expert. Maybe it does. I just don't use it.
Okay.
So it's a mixture. Do you know there's a project out there in the wild when they're going to build like a horizontal skyscraper, like a few 100 miles long.
Okay.
And so think of that as a place where you can meet people. And also think of something like a ski resort, like a really large one, right? There are tons of people there concurrently, tons of places to hang out, tons of places to chill, restaurants, work areas or whatnot, coffee shops. Imagine people spend a lot of time there, so much that they want to have a dating service. So I've never used one, but I think I'm quite familiar with what it's supposed to be.
You want to have a data service at a particular place that you are a lot.
Dating, like Tinder.
Dating.
So you want people to be able to meet each other, I don't know, romantically or whatnot, have a friendly conversation. But you want to focus that. You want to focus on the idea that people who can discover each other are nearby.
Okay.
So I think a ski resort is one example of such an application. But imagine you're hired as a CTO and founder, principal engineer, or whatnot. We're gonna raise the stakes, and the investors really want it to be universal. So maybe today you launch like in Mammoth or in whale resorts, and tomorrow you launch it somewhere out there in like Expanse style interstellar colony.
Sure. So it's basically like where you're launching it shouldn't matter as long as it's geographically like an intact area. Okay.
It's just that you want to mesh with people, you want to discover them, but it should be primarily based on location.
Okay. And is this, so you say like, I guess, the dating service, is it going to be like the bounds of the location? Is it going to be really like the resorts? As soon as you're outside the resort, then you're considered somebody that's not interested in skiing. Like are we extending to like down the street to all the restaurants or whatever? But you see what I'm saying?
I guess why not? Yeah. Well, so look, if you fix the boundaries, that's a good way to approach it. But if you fix the boundaries, you have all these boundary conditions. What if I'm just across the street? So, and then you're kind of cheating because you can say, I'm going to launch a new server for every location. I sort of want it to be global so that it's uninterrupted service.
Okay. So we're thinking more like a certain distance from the user, and that's it. Okay. All right. So I'll note that. Okay. Okay. Let me think here. I don't want to rush through because I want to make sure I've caught everything to do with this problem. So of course, like a dating service itself, I guess we could talk about the regular requirements. I'll just do this, functional requirements, and we'll say, you know, for specifically for the dating service, just all dating services. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this one, like what makes this one different, if there's anything else to add there. Okay, so I'll back up a little bit and say the users. So we have really just one type of user, as far as I know, in terms of dating apps. I've been married so long, I actually have never used one. So
yeah, we're gonna ban ChatGPT and other stuff like that. It should be real humans.
Okay, so you know, the person, I guess, user should be able to create a profile. So yeah, let me.
I think so. To save time on this, let's
Sure.
assume it's like a basic version of an early days social network, like Instagram or Flickr. You post pictures and you interact with people who like them, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then there's like the actual chat function, right?
Yeah, I guess you could message people. So what I was thinking originally when I came up with this is you can only message people who reacted with your content.
Okay.
So you see like a bunch of dots around you. You post a picture of this wonderful, I don't know, place to jump on your snowboard, and whoever liked the picture, you can view their profiles and send and chat to them.
I'm gonna make sure I caught that. Create a profile. I'm gonna break these out. Sorry. I'm gonna take a little bit of extra time here. I'm a little I don't want to rush through this piece, so just bear with me here. So then the user can basically see discover other profiles only when the user is of users who are within X, distance right now, correct? Like as
Yeah, I think so. But keep in mind, this could be like thousands of people.
Okay. I'm gonna make note of that. Like thousands. All right. So I guess I'm wondering, like, the ordering. I'm sure that there's again my understanding of dating apps is a little bit maybe basic, but I would assume that there's some sort of order in which like, are you seeing just one profile at a time? Is it kind of like that, or is it a list of profiles of all of, for example, if it is up to thousands of people, how do we want to surface those? Like, is there a particular order, like the very closest first, or is there some sort of compatibility, calculation we're going to make between users? Should I not worry about the compatibility piece, or just assume that it's
drop that totally. I'm thinking out loud here, but I think what we can do is we can move away from dating and think of like photographers taking pictures of people jumping or so.
Okay.
So it's the same matching problem, right? But there's no matching at all.
Okay, so you post a thing, like, in this case, it's a profile. Other people are interacting with it in some kind of feed.
I would imagine what you'd see when you open the app is the pictures people are posting from near you. So I would say, hey, I have this wonderful, I'm having blue wine here in this location, and if people like how I posted that picture, they could come over. Or I'm saying, hey, I'm riding down this slope. If you're down there, you can take a picture of me jumping in about 30 seconds. That's approximately the product.
Okay. 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 All right. So I'm kind of thinking of this as like a feed based on, some combination of proximity and recentness, I guess. And we're going to be surfacing like who just posted a status update from. So it's really going to be a feed of sort of like images, we'll just go ahead and call it posts for just a generic purpose, but it can be images, sort of a status update kind of thing, like, some text. And
Works on me,
yeah, we're thinking of these posts as kind of like the little invitations, but between the users. Okay, so a user can view a feed of posts, and I'm guessing they have to, you said that they had to like the post in order to chat with the other user. Is that right?
That's the framing I thought of. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can only message people who interacted with your content.
Message
somehow.
Other users with okay. Okay. All right. So I'm getting a sense of this. And then of course they can post themselves, publish a post basically. Receive messages, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Is there anything else? And then, yeah, these are message. So there's a kind of a chat message component. There's a feed. There's the profile itself and the user. I guess we can go. I'm trying to think of any other use cases before I move on. Is this a clear idea of how the user is going to interact with the service? Okay.
Yeah, I would say discovery could be tricky, but let's say you can just you can just see their names and avatars and that's it. But once they react to your posts, you can have a proper conversation.
Okay. All right. So we're seeing people, we're not really seeing their account, their profile, we're seeing their posts, and we can navigate to their profile. But
let's say you have to have, let's keep it super simple. You have to have a profile picture, which could be anything, but you have it, and you can see their pictures. You can see them floating around you.
Okay.
Like if we're a company, we want people to have some experience. So for those who don't post anything, they at least see some interactions. They see things happen. They see, oh, people are moving around me. That's all I want for the users to have before they begin using the app.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think we have a good idea here. So we're initially going to be able to see, I guess I'm imagining the user is going to be able to see profiles of people that are within a certain amount of distance right now. They're going to be able to see their content on a feed as well, like, an integrated feed of everyone that's on that list of users within their, current radius, I guess. And then, so you can look at somebody's post, you can look at their profile, you can only message them once you've interacted with their posts.
Once they interacted with your posts. It's
right.
like opt-in. You give consent to be contacted once you like something.
Okay, so it's once somebody interacts with your post, you also have to interact with their post in order for the both, I guess, directions to be open. I mean,
that's a good question. Yeah, like product-wise. If I want to be super nerdy, I would say once I liked your post, you can message me. But once you message me, that's an interaction, so we can communicate. once the floodgate is open, once one message has been exchanged, it's
then
a proper chat.
Right. Okay. So really the person who, I guess it's between the sender and the receiver of, the message, it's really the sender that opens the ability to send the message by interacting with the content. The person whose content is being interacted with isn't the one who decides whether the messages start. In other words, so I guess I'm trying to say, in other words, let me say it hopefully more simply. There's two people in this, I guess, message chat. The person who opens the message chat is doing so, or like opens the ability to message, is the person who's interacting with someone's content. It's not the person who owns the content.
The person who owns the content can initiate the chat. So
with anyone who's interacted with their content.
Yeah, if you think about it from the UX perspective. So when someone likes your post, you get a notification. And next to this notification, there's a button, chat with this person. So you can just see that I liked something you posted and ignore it. You can open my profile, and there's a button to message me. Okay. But you can only see my profile and message me. Like, you can see my full profile only if I liked something from you. I guess that sounds fair.
Okay, so there's actually two. I don't want to spend too long here, but I do want to make sure I totally understand. So a user can have their content interacted with. This allows them to see the profiles of everyone who's.
When I interact with your content, I allow you to see my profile.
Okay, yes. Person interacts with another person's content. That person who published the content can now see the person's the liker's profile.
I think that's how the modern psychology is taught in Harvard, that any communication is a bit. So when I like something you posted, I'm inviting you for a conversation.
Okay, so
but I cannot just.
We can't see the full profiles of people within X distance.
Right.
We can only see. Okay. Here we go. Let me correct this. So I'll just say, user, avatars, or, some abbreviation of the profile is visible. I'll just put this in.
Yeah, like a good analogy here would be when we use like online collaboration tools. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes I can see mouse pointers of other people. Maybe I see their names next to mouse pointers, but I can't really talk to them, right?
Okay. All right, I see. And so then once somebody has interacted with your thing, then you can I'll put, of course now my whole list is messed up. Okay. Can view full profile after the user has interacted with the content. Okay. Can message people that have interacted with them, but not necessarily the people who they've interacted with who haven't reciprocated in some way. That's
a very good way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
We can call the service reciprocity. Since you're a co-founder, yeah, why not?
Okay, and then we can receive chat messages from people Okay, so can send chat messages to people who have interacted with them, and then the flip can receive messages from people they've interacted with. Okay. All right. Okay. I think I've cleared that up for myself.
Yes, let's bring some context here. So I would imagine for some framing that both for the mind map of this current conversation and overall, my mental model is that this is something we could chat about if you're like interviewing around. And if I'm the founder of this company, I've spoken with 10 people, and I like your understanding of the product the best, plus your resume. So let's say we agree that we see the product the same way. So we're now moving towards technical challenges.
Okay.
What do you think would those be?
Okay. All right.
So like you're hired, you're a partner in crime. Let's get to how we make it happen.
Okay, let's get to it. All right. Okay, so I guess the key thing for me right now is thinking about how to know the user's location. So how to share the location information among the users. I think that's kind of the where I would go next. If that's, does that sound good to you, Dima? Okay.
What would usually happen is you would have a team of front-end developers. Most likely your investors would say start from iOS because that's what life is about these days.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the application we have for iPhones, it would ask the users to consent to sharing their location. Once they open the app would not work unless they do. And once they did, your application on the phone knows their location real time.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and assume that we've, that users provide authorization to share their geographical. Okay. Okay, so everyone's agreed to share. So from the, I guess my thought straight off is that I'm thinking that this would have to be some kind of cache. So I'm gonna try to outline what I'm thinking here. So we've got the user, which we're thinking is mobile, and then I'm wondering if WebSocket might be a better approach here. So just to describe a little bit where I'm thinking, the tricky part is not is to retrieve the other locations quickly, to update locations. We have to think about, like, I guess I'm just going to list the challenges here. So how often, or how will we update users' location? How often? Like, I'll say frequency, and where will we store the user's location in such a way that other users can, I guess we are making sure that the other users are like seeing an up-to-date accurate portrait of who's near them. So all of this is to say, I'm thinking that rather than have this too much in the back end, I'm thinking that there should be some cache upfront that would store users' geographical location and update it, and share it to the users within the same radius. This is tricky though, because it's not as if, like, it's not like followers or something. It's not like somebody can be removed from, so somebody can be at the north of the ski resort, for example, and their bubble is gonna, their radius is gonna be, perhaps like covering I guess what I'm saying is obviously like the list of people that are within your area is very fluctuates. So I might
Yeah. Let me prevent you from going into some really difficult direction, which is possible but tricky.
mhm.
So there are protocols and technologies to make it serverless. When you said you wanted to be like not much on the back end, you could in theory have phones talk to one another, like in a mesh network.
Mhm.
We're not doing that. That's super hard.
Okay.
So even if we're next to one another, for me to see your dot moving, the information from your phone that you're changing location would have to reach my phone through the server. For now,
Mhm.
there's just no other way.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'm just gonna write this out here. So then I would say like I think it's gonna either have to branch off at this point. So there's gonna be the actual stuff to create, the business. I guess I'm imagining here. I'll actually go. No, okay. Can we all agree that I'm talking about after the load balancer? Here we go. Then I see it splitting off into two kind of directions here. Because I think on one hand, like there's going to be an API gateway to handle like the creation of the account, the creation of the profile,
That's taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to just like, say, okay, API gateway, this is going to handle the other business logic that's not about location.
Yeah, you know me well. We've got to dig into the most interesting part.
Yeah, let's exactly.
Location.
Yeah, let's say boring part. All right.
Well, it's I wouldn't say it's boring. It's still a proper interview conversation with other people, but I'm pretty sure we two can do better, and it's going to be far more fun and exciting.
Okay. And okay, so this, now I'm thinking that there's going to be maybe a WebSocket server here. And this is going to be what handles the, location updates between users.
But it's not between users. WebSocket connection is one-to-one.
Right. Sorry, just the location of a single user as it updates. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the between part is on us.
Okay. So right. So this is gonna have to have some kind of like pub sub type. I would go towards pub sub at this point. I think maybe like a Redis type solution where you basically have one user that has an ID, or maybe it's just the session ID, like, okay, they've opened the app, this is where they are right now. And then so every user, so let's slow down a little bit and talk about the data model here, like specifically like the user, how am I going to save the users?
So yeah, the interesting part is that I agree it's going to be pub sub.
Yeah, you agree it's going to be pub sub.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to convey this message. So yeah, that's the right direction. That's okay. In all capacities, I can be an interviewer here, a mentor, or whatnot. But I would immediately ask you, what do you mean by pub sub? What could you explain what it does, and why is it a better choice compared to other options?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think the advantage that I see from pub sub here is that rather than constantly checking, like querying the location, I mean, it allows me to say, okay, I'm going to share the information about this user's location only with those who are interested in it or need it.
That's all the users in certain radius, within certain radius.
Within that radius, yes.
And eventually we're going to add stuff like blocking and whatnot, but right now it's everybody. We're building the first prototype. It's the most fun part. We can cut all the corners.
Okay, what do you mean?
If there are 100 people on this resort who use this app,
Okay.
when any of them opens the app, I want them to see 99 other dots. Maybe green for currently in the app, gray is for phone in the pocket, I'm skiing down or whatnot. I just want to see this happening.
Okay.
That's all we need to do in the first, let's say, 3 months of our collaboration.
Okay. All right. So if we're talking about a user, so a user has a status and it's, green. You said gray.
Yeah, like active, background, disconnected, whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, all the data model here would be
I think that's
last seen coordinates, last timestamp, X, Y, T.
So we want to see the people who are within X distance, and I should note here, and online, obviously. I think we assumed that, but I'll
yeah, that's fair.
That clear. Okay. So the location. So when the user logs on, they need the location data of all of the users that are online within their radius, correct?
That's where the fun begins. Yes. How do they get it?
Okay. So we need to have a way of calculating or identifying which users are in that radius. And the way that geographical data is saved is a little bit new to me. So I might I might go through this a little bit untraditionally. I'm assuming that coordinates are saved for the user periodically. Is that how you would save the format of the geographical status? Is that would it just be a latitude and longitude, or would we be talking about like tiling and it's this tile on the map? Do you know what I mean?
These are good points, actually. I don't think we should get there soon enough. I mean, for the MVP, we really don't care. Overall, yes. Certainly we're talking about supersonic speeds and people changing locations rapidly. Things get tricky. But if it's just humans traveling at the speed of downhill, just 2 coordinates should be fine.
Okay.
What do you want to set them to a database every once in a few seconds? That's an open question. That's on you.
Right.
Because like technically,
it would be nice to have some kind of range that you would save this users at this point, and then have an easy way of saying like cut from here to here. These are all the people within, like, we know your number. Let's grab everybody who's, this much north, this much east, you know what I mean? Like this much west, this much south. Like, let's have a way of like segmenting out the users that are within those parameters.
For most databases, you can pretty much run this query. Let's say it's a SQL database. Then you can just say select all users where latitude is between this and that, longitude between this and that. So that's this alone does not seem to be a showstopper. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So okay. So we have a good idea of how we're gonna retrieve the users that were within that. It's really the question, I think, maybe your you're trying to get to is how we're going to update the location of a user. Okay.
Yeah, when I go online first, that's okay. I don't go online multiple times per second. So you can just make a query to the database and get the current coordinates late by a couple seconds, no big deal.
Okay.
Then the trick is when stuff is in motion.
Okay, so we're saying like user logs on. We are, we have that one, query. We query for all, nearby profiles or users once. And then the question is now how like, my instinct is to reduce the, obviously, like not make that query too often. We will have people on that we will remove, as they, like, I guess that's my thought with the pub sub is like, okay, so if you start with the list of everybody in your area, we can at least save a little bit of time and avoid some queries by having those, like basically subscribing to those users' location so that when a user goes offline or out of the area, that we know to drop them. I think the complicated point would be or at least the costly question is, how often do we want to check to see if new users have entered, like users that weren't provided in the first query have now joined the area.
It's interesting how you started from removing people from this list. To me, that's the less difficult part, because if you do it later, that's okay. If the tricky part is somebody just pops out next to you, that's a shame if we don't show this person on your screen.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to figure out whether you want to talk about when to query again, or when, like, for new.
Look, you sort of nailed the architectural part here. We have the database, which contains the data. So when it's a cold start problem, you can make a query, and then you articulated that you want to have a pub sub interface for real time changes.
Right.
Now, walk me through how you befriend these two. How do they interact with each other?
Okay. All right. Let's move on to that then. Okay. So the user logs on, they see, I'll say, this is the first one. Okay. So they see dots on the map, it sounds like. You see, you're referring to dots. So I'm thinking there's going to be some kind of map here. And maybe like, can click to avatar, abbreviated profile. And, there's also like, can see a feed. Okay. So now the user, okay. So now the user is, I guess we would also want to make sure that we don't take too long to, I guess, Dima, are you concerned about the speed of like the interactions between the user's content and the ability to message, like making sure that that's,
I'm operating under the assumption that we can build a messenger. So
okay.
I feel like once the connection is established, the messaging part is taken care of. When it comes to the feed, that's a really good question. I'm deliberately focusing on the dots part right now because it's more real time sensitive. So yeah, with the feed, it's okay if that stuff is like a database query, right? But if you, for the sake of clarity, what I'm thinking about is my interface on my phone. I have like two tabs that I can slide left or right, or I can tab left or right, and either I see a map or I see the feed. But the feed is something that is kind of standard, so we know we can do it. So let's focus on the first part, on the dots.
Okay. All right, let's focus on the dots. So we're going to be updating. So back to the pub sub, like, I guess that's where I was thinking that the users, you know, we're going to be, as the user moves, we're going to be sending an update to their, you know, channel, so to speak, and whoever is like subscribing to that will receive those updates.
Oh, that's pretty clever. That's really clever. So when you say channel, what do you mean by that? Is it something internal, or?
Yes. I guess, like, okay, so my thought is like, okay, this user is going to be moving around, all these users are going to be moving around. How to like segment out the users that we're trying to keep track of where they are. Like, there's going to be folks that are kind of dynamically being added and removed from the list, is my assumption. So as you move, you know, your data is going to be reflected on, you know, what your location is going to be updated on everyone else's devices, and, you know, everyone's location is going to be updated on mine. So when I'm thinking of channels, I'm kind of thinking of like maintaining all of the users, you know, IDs or whatever, session IDs, or you know, however we want to identify them, and having that kind of maintained on like in a channel. Like, this is the channel for this user's potential friends. and we're adding and we're maintaining like who actually is in that channel, and whoever's in that channel, whenever there's an update for any of those users, then we would track that, you know, then the device the user has would receive. Does that make sense?
That's real interesting, because I'll be super honest with you. That's probably what I was trying to get to, and I expected this to take far longer. That's a tricky question. So yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I think what we're talking about is the same. Yeah, let me just clarify a couple of things just to make sure we're on the same page.
Please use your language.
I can adjust to yours. It's just, I always like to ask about the physical meaning of things. So when you say channel can mean a couple of things. Channel can be like a group chat in WhatsApp. Channel can be a Kafka topic. Channel can be a Golang primitive. So that's when you say there's a channel open, I'm expecting you to tell me at which granularity are you talking about. Is it something that lives within the load balancer and the API gateway? Is it something that is a logical entity on the messenger level, or just give me some insight into how it's structured in your mind, so we can move forward more effectively.
Sure. I'm sorry. I thought I had described it sufficiently. So I guess
at which level of abstraction do your channels operate?
I would say that they are, you know, after the load balancer, then we hit the WebSocket servers, and the WebSocket servers are gonna be like using a Redis pub/sub type infrastructure, and they're going to, and also we would have some kind of user location cache.
Right. Look, I don't want to derail you.
Channel.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I want to make sure I hit the point that you're leading.
It's just so. For example, I don't think what you mean is that the channel is tied to a WebSocket. It's just when you change locations, you don't really close this WebSocket and open a new one.
Okay, fair. Yes.
So but that also could be described by the word channel. You could say, oh, in my design, you know what? When your phone moves from the upper level to the lower level, you close this WebSocket and you open a new one. That's also plausible. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's probably trickier, but it's also a reasonable design. So when you say channel, I want to understand what does it map to in the logical data model.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just say like user session. So when someone comes online, they're gonna have an ID, and they're gonna have, you know, current location. know it should be a lot long. And so when we're going to do the initial query, but when we're talking about channels, I guess like when we do an initial query of everyone within the radius, we're going to add those user IDs to a list. And I guess I'm thinking that this will, we can open a channel. And maybe channel is the wrong word for it. But I'm thinking that for each user, they would have kind of a list of users that they are subscribing to their location updates.
Okay, let me ask it this way then.
Okay.
What's the idea of the channel?
To only basically to have a place where each user is pushing their location update, and and it's being published only when they've moved. And
then it's one channel per user. So every single user, assuming it's one-to-one users to devices, every single user is publishing their coordinate updates to their dedicated channel. And then there's no channel tied to location. There's
okay.
no like
I hadn't thought,
peak of the mountain channel.
Yeah, I had thought about it as more of like a channel. In the channel is all the updates for everyone in that area.
Oh, right. In this case, the key of the channel would have to somehow describe the area.
Yes, I know. So that's the thing. It's like how to keep that list of who we care about getting information from or updates from, like, current. Maybe I've derailed myself.
No, it all makes sense. So what we're trying to solve for here is, as it often happens, when it comes to many-to-many communication, and right now we're talking about many-to-many, there are a bunch of people, like for n people, there are potentially n squared messages to be sent. So when we're talking about many-to-many, the biggest question is how to minimize extra traffic. So presumably, if we are far apart from each other, chances are we don't need your phone to receive my location updates and vice versa. So all we're solving for is how to design your channel structure to pretty much send what has to be sent, but effectively cut out what can be omitted.
Okay.
If it's one channel per user, that might work, but you'd need to think about how to design the system which would dynamically subscribe and unsubscribe people from channels.
Right. Okay. I'm trying to think of a different way to do it then. So, I mean, if it was one channel per user, then basically every user would have a certain number of users there subscribing to their channels. Is that what you're saying? And you'd have to handle that separately?
No, that works. I don't see why not.
Okay. All right.
If there's 100 people next to each other, then sharing their location with each other is no different from having a group chat with 100 people where everybody is posting, I'm here, I'm there.
Okay. So we'll also say like user channel is, initiated, or I guess, and all the users with it, because it's not just getting all of the people in your radius, it's also making sure that you're sharing to all these potentially different overlapping spaces. So I mean, it's not just like what's my list of everyone near me, but also making sure that I'm publishing to everybody who's maybe their radius overlaps with mine, but it's obviously not exactly the same.
Yeah, that's exactly this n squared part.
Yeah.
The gist of the problem is to avoid the n-squared part. So if your phone or if the backend service that accepts the connection from your phone has to decide in real time which users to relay your message to, that works, but it's far more difficult, and that's not really leveraging standard PubSub solutions.
Okay.
You had this idea in the beginning about tiles when you asked how to store geodata.
Yes.
So they don't really exist on the system, but you can think of them as a grouping technique, right?
Right. So, I mean, when I'm talking about tiles, I'm really just talking about, like, you know, what I understand of Google Maps, which is pretty brief, but like, you know, how to break down a location, like, you know, from the whole world down to, you know, a zoom level, and how to, like, define the I guess blocks of you know, the earth. So, you know, for example, if there's a zoom level, you know, that's just you know, a small radius of, you know, just the mile around me, then it would have a lot different detail than if it was zoomed out. But so I'm thinking about the way that tiling helps retrieve, like, nearby things, like restaurants. And so that's kind of why my head's going in that direction, because I know that there's a way to, like, retrieve quickly for Google Maps when you're looking for, like, gas stations and stuff. So I'm going in that direction.
So it's a tricky part. Like it's a bit of a slippery slope because we need to carefully orchestrate the middle path between two extremes. We can do this like nearby friends on Yelp, which will probably be a KD tree style solution. And so you divide the space into halves, then into halves again, and ultimately we have this tree, and your leaves are some smallish regions. This works, but if you use that, like, so this approach would not scale would not immediately translate to PubSubs, because every single location update would redirect too many PubSub messages. Your route is the whole world. Your first leaves are like quadrants of the world, so that's going to be overloaded. So your idea with channels is actually brilliant. Again, I'm quite impressed that we got there. We just need to make sure it works. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to warn you against this KD tree idea, because if you go that path, we'll get lost in the weeds.
Okay. All right. So for, like, I'll just say, like, you know, publisher, then I guess at this point I'm thinking this is like the Redis, you know, PubSub situation. So it would hit user one's, like, let's say user one. Okay, user one's channel. I don't want to even do a direction here. And then, like, I guess user, you know, subscriber, it could, I guess there would be everyone that would subscribe to your channel would Dima.
So
Okay,
like my phone will subscribe to your channel if my phone knows it's next to yours.
Right. So yes.
Yeah, in this case, how to unsubscribe is clear, but how do I not miss the moment when you were far away but now you're close?
Right. So that's the thing. It's like how this query for nearby users needs, I guess I would do this at some, like, regular point, like frequency.
And it sounds simple, but I think at this point we have a complete design. This actually works. So yes, if you query for nearby users with certain frequency and update this list of subscribers, I think this flies. That's
okay. That's good news. I'm sure there's a lot more we can dig into, and I want to go wherever wherever you think we should focus at this point. But
so let's do this. I think you could do a time check. We probably have a couple minutes left. I would probably ask you in a real interview. I would probably ask you to walk me through. So you chose PubSub for a reason, but somehow you said, "Oh, I'm going to use Redis PubSub," which is a good choice here. But I'm curious what made you think so. There must be something in the problem that made you think of Redis first. Could you give us like a small lecture? How do you differentiate between them? What is the selection criteria?
I think I thought of Redis because I know it's cheap. To be honest, I think that was my first thought, is just like a lightweight message bus. It's the first thing I think of.
So your instinct was it should be cheap and lightweight. So Redis works. That's a good answer.
Okay.
It truly is a good answer. Yeah, I would also add that you can lose updates. It's not a problem where you need to have every single update. If a couple of them are lost, no big deal. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
How would you on time, Kevin? What do you think?
I think we've had about 50 minutes, 50.
Okay.
So if there's, maybe we could do like a bonus round real quick, if you two want to.
I think also, yeah, maybe so I'm sure that like for different levels, especially for people watching, like they're targeting different levels. I'm sure this question at different levels has different things that hopefully Dima is looking for. So maybe he can also just provide me also with the feedback, like this is the gap between what I would want to see here at this level.
Dima, how did Grace do this time? Or no. Grace, how did you do this time?
I certainly feel like I did better than my first go around with Dima. But definitely think I could work on still the communication when it gets down to the tricky part of the problem. I think I want to make sure that I'm not losing my confidence in that area or my clarity. So I'm interested to see what Dima thinks.
Let's do in the best recommendation style by Alien. Let's not focus on like pass, fail, good, bad. Let's focus on what do you think were the best parts, and what do you think are some things that you would do differently if you do it again right now, hypothetically.
I think that I did a good job at defining the problem. I think there were some questions there that we kind of ended up talking more at length to clarify kind of not just the relationship between users, but the functionality between them. I think, I don't know, I feel like maybe in the past I would have skipped over that and maybe lost a little bit of the understanding of the complexity of the problem. And I think I could do better. I'm definitely going to be working on doing better at talking about like using more precise vocabulary when it comes to my solutions for whatever it may be in terms of like communications between the servers. And so I think I would improve kind of my communication towards the end there. I think got a little bit flurried.
Dima,
Funny you should say that. Yeah. I feel like your instincts were really sharp here. I try to like not outplay it. I try to not overpraise you. But in terms of with this idea that you can use channels, as in chat channels, you hit the nail there. When I was thinking about this problem, I was thinking that a reasonable solution could be something along the lines of designing Yelp, nearby friends, like open restaurants near me. When you maintain a data structure where you can quickly look up stuff near you. But then I realized, hey, if you already have the chat, if you already know that your chat application is already designed, what if you just reuse this? What if you have this like ephemeral group chats per location where applications post updates, but people don't see these messages as updates. It's just an input to a different part of the system. And you almost said it. I feel like what you had in mind is exactly this. I just had to clarify, and I clarified nicely a couple times, but I feel like I had to dig this out like straight from. So I would say like at this point you said all the right things, but you were not confident enough. And somehow when I tried to push gently-ish, that you know that I might as well. It's like in poker. I might be bluffing. I might be asking tricky questions.
No, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine with a poke, but I agree. Yeah, I think I had the right idea and the right concept, but I think the confidence there towards the end was. I wanted to make sure that I was answering the question, I think, fully and probably belabored some points.
Dima, what do you think was the difference between Grace last time and Grace this time? If you had to condense it to like one or two things.
Boldness. Like last time you were mostly trying to like not take any punches. This time, like I think, yeah, part of that was the framing, the priming. Part of that is just, I guess, practice. But this time you actually walked into the room under the assumption that you have to build it, and we're going to work on this together. But at the end of the day, we have to have a working solution, as opposed to just something explained along the lines that kind of makes sense. So that's like you focused on having all the pieces connected together far more. Let me try to answer this leveling question. I still don't like that. But
no
I feel
one will
like
hold you to it. No one will hold you to it.
No, I mean I'll cheat. I'll answer an adjacent question, and then for the benefit of you, Grace, and everybody here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think there are two things I would highlight. One is this time I like how you draw attention, how you've been drawing attention to the important parts. First part of the requirements, and then part of the solution. So this channels idea in PubSub, it was far more clear. Like here we're going to use PubSub. We're going to play with Redis. We're going to have a load balancer that is in the gateway server that is behind the load balancer. That's good. I could have pushed further. I'm not sure if I should have. It's just I felt like the PubSub part was uncovered. I would not have been asking you at the end of the interview about why Redis had you spent 15 seconds talking about why exactly do you think it's a PubSub part.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one of those few things where you can actually just learn to say a couple things up front. So what is PubSub good for? Primarily decoupling of consumers and producers so they can be asynchronous, independent of one another. Applicable here, totally. That's the goal. Like if you just say that, can you lose messages? Is the order important? What's the key here? Is it the user or the location? That's it. And the second part is probably more on a like senior plus level. What we interviewers look for people who claim to be above seniors. And I always interview people like 0.7 levels above what they claim to be, because it's more fun this way. What we look, I mean, it's also like honestly, my favorite trick when people ask for levels is I always interview people for somewhat higher, and then they just tell me up front at the end of the interview, all right, I feel like I'm qualified for that. So I delegate this to them, and then they can compare their offers and their experiences, and it's down to recruiters to make this level decision. I talk to people as if they set the bar. I talk to them, and then we go down from there. That's how it usually happens. Well, it can go up, but it's my style to set a really high bar and then calibrate there. So what we're looking for at this level is what is usually referred to as disagree and commit. You really want to be taking sides. Like once or twice during the interview, we expect you to, I wouldn't say fight with me, but I expect you to be really proud of something. I expect you to say, you know what, this is the right thing. And if I'm not, like, I can change my mind, but I feel it's the right solution, and it's the hill I might die on. Let's talk about it. And you've been far more far bolder, as I said before, today. But it was still kind of like agile-ish. I can do that or that. This sounds like a good idea, maybe. It's like you're no longer looking for justification. You're no longer looking for endorsements, but you're still not making bold statements that, hey, if I had to build it today, I'll do it this way.
And assume that they want you to do that. Like basically, Grace from last time didn't see the solution. This time saw the solution. Next time, see it and say why.
Defend it
early.
Defend it strongly. Yeah. No, I think that's great feedback for sure.
Yeah, cool. I have but before we get into Q&A, I do want to spend some time just like a little bit more about like the dynamics of the first time between the second time. And I want Dima like a couple minutes walkthrough to just talk about the problem or just things in general, not leveling, but how you think about the problem. Like if you were just going to do a few-minute breakdown into the problem. But before we get into that, when you say that Grace was bolder this time, there was an interesting comment. I don't know if I agreed with it, but somebody said that she was interrupting you. Did you think that Grace was interrupting you, Dima?
I'm not a proper authority on this. Like my ego is so low when I talk to people that even if it happened, I didn't notice. If it helps the conversation, I'll go with it.
I thought she was leading the conversation in a helpful way. That's what I thought personally, and I thought that from my perspective, Grace number 1 did not do that. Grace number 2 did that.
Now that you said it, yeah, I feel like twice in the interview, I caught myself talking over you, and I kept silent. I guess this kind of qualifies for interruption, but I never saw it this way. I never do. I saw this as a sign of boldness. Like, you know what you're doing, you know your stuff. I'm here to listen. I'm here to it's my job to understand you better before I can challenge that or agree with that and move on. So that's absolutely something that I saw today. And I did not pay attention to this last time. I guess I had to drive it further, stronger.
I'm trying to remember the final reading you gave Grace last time, Dima. I think you said L4, yes, L5, not yet. What would you say for this time?
It's more than a coin flip for L5.
It's probably between maybe more less of 4 point what.
Right. Yeah. 4 point what? What was it? What was last time? And then what was this time?
If I was a 4.0 last time.
That's a distribution, guys. It's like a coin flip.
We won't hold you to it, Dima. You can change your mind in 5 minutes.
Use your gut, Dima.
Look, be bold.
I don't like ratings. But let me tell you this. I think last time it would have taken rolling double 6, maybe 6-5 on it if you roll 2 dice. So 3 of 36 that you could pass for an L5. Right now it's more than 50-50, I would say. Okay. So assuming you nailed everything else, assuming the coding interview is nailed, assuming the behavioral stuff is done, the referral checks all good. If you claim that, hey, I'm applying for a senior level, and the purpose of this interview is to confirm you're not an imposter, I think chances are, for most interviewers who will speak with you on this level, it will depend on the problem, on the mood, on whether they are before lunch or after, on whether they had an argument last night. But without things being equal, that's probably all more than 50-50.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I know I'm not at the slam dunk stage yet, but I am working there, and I appreciate y'all's help on that journey.
All right, Dima, can you give us a walkthrough of the problem from your perspective, just before we look at Q&A, just how you think about it or what people should know?
I'll try. So first of all, I think you've done a surprisingly good job at decomposing it from the functional requirements part. As you know, I often don't like this part. I feel it's time consuming and it's not that useful at the end of the day. I started doing this exercise with people I interview. I asked them towards the end of the interview. So hey, we spent 15 minutes doing the FRs. How much of this helped you? Looking back at the other 40 minutes. How much of this did you actually use? And oftentimes the answer is none. But I think in your case, you played it cool. As in, it was a conversation. You interacted with me. You were asking clarification questions. So I didn't feel like you're trying to fill your time with something. I felt like you're trying to understand things better and put it into writing. So there was that was actually, like, if I can compare, it would, like, I would say, like, top 5% of this part. But keep in mind, like, compared to many other candidates, but keep in mind, A, it's not the problem I asked before. I made it up for today specifically because we can have more fun this way. And B, I don't genuinely like the FR spot. So yeah, that's certainly top 1% or so. Well, top 5% or so, if I may. Furthermore, yeah, I like how you downplayed yourself with respect to, I don't really know how to work with geodata. So it was an interesting way to buy yourself some time. I mean, come on, it's not long. Most databases these days can query, like, if not by rectangles, x between x0, x1, y between y0, y1. Most databases these days have some geocapacities. So something, yeah. That's, I'm not an expert, but sounds like a really good trick here. So without this disclaimer, I would say it probably took a bit longer than I expected. With it was perfectly fine. So it didn't feel off. I didn't want to interrupt you in many ways because you were saying all the right things. I like how you confidently glossed over the part where, hey, I have this user, WebSocket, load balancer. I could be picky. I could have asked a couple questions there, like, why WebSocket? Why not a pure socket if it's a mobile app? All good. I didn't bother, and honestly, at your level, like at L5 at this point, there's no need. Yeah, I guess we all agree that the vocabulary about the channels, like, I asked explicitly, hey, is it like a pub subtopic, or is it something? Is it some? What's the logical channel? And I tried to not make it a dead giveaway when I asked about HTTP connections. So, but I mean, look, I always tell people that I'm going to put you under some stress because real interviews are stressful. So, like, I would say, yeah, in a chill environment, you probably would take a deep breath and answer shorter. Right now, you had to struggle, and I didn't feel like hinting you because it would have been probably too easy. So, but look, that's okay. Under the pressure of the interview, that's probably how it should be. So I would say, yeah, that's, had you answered that upfront, that's a clear, like, 90% chance to get to L5. With this, it's still above a coin flip, and I think it made sense to me. As in, I could see you struggling, and of course there's also pressure because we've been recorded. And I was thinking what to do with that, and I decided best is to do nothing, because it was like a positive struggle when you didn't really, like, how do I put it? I knew you were getting somewhere where it makes sense, both in terms of solving the problem and in terms of presenting yourself. So that's really important. The impression you left at the end is that you had the grit and the stamina to solve it, and you're making all the right steps. I can cover the simple parts.
Yeah, the skyscraper. Skyscraper.
I'm not sure it was important. I originally thought dating could be a good setup, but somehow neither of us is familiar with it. So, so maybe they're like ski slopes, then expands like universe with multiple locations across the universe, and then the skyscraper could be useful. I was thinking what's the good analogy. I just wanted to make sure it's not like city setup. I wanted to make sure there's some artificial map involved.
Nice. Okay. So it was more of an arbitrary statement. It's more of a stylistic choice, the skyscraper thing.
My goal was to actually have a product level conversation, and we did have it. So that goal was accomplished. I wanted, Grace, I wanted you to assume the role of the product owner for a moment. So that the functional requirements are not just collecting some numbers and claiming that I want to have this degree of parallelism and stuff, but thinking what the users would need from the service. And I think, yeah, we struggled a bit. I take the blame. That's totally my fault. That was all good. At the end of the day, the goal that was meant to be accomplished by mentioning the skyscraper, I think it worked well. The mesh part, yeah, some people like talking about mesh networks.
Can we say the question out loud before we answer, just for the people that can't see that on YouTube later?
Dima has mentioned mesh a couple of times, and the idea of being able to use this as a space station. I will look into using an actual mesh network of devices connecting to each other rather than going through a service in the data center to connect. The answer is data center service. Unless it's specific to a particular type of company that is building mesh networks, chances are at L5 interviews you don't need to be super fancy.
Nice. That was that one. Mesh. Horizontal skyscraper. Cool.
You want to take number 7, Grace?
Okay. Okay. So the question is, outside of dedicated coaching, working with Dima and collaborating on the guide, how much additional effort did you put in from November? So I'm actually still doing dedicated coaching. I'm working through a coaching package provided by the platform interviewing.io, and I'd say I'm about third of the way through. So I still have several sessions left with my mentor. Outside of that, I have been just like going through resources, including the guide that we've put together, and also just like system design interview books. There's the Alex Chu kind ones, that both of those I've read. So I wouldn't say I've done a lot outside of just like the coaching, but I also feel like a lot of stuff, it's like making up the gap between what I've learned in the wild and kind of putting it all together and to the skills that you need to sound good in these and to provide solutions in this. So I wouldn't say that much outside of that, but that the coaching itself, my coach has given me a lot of different resources to look at. So I think that's where I spend most of my time.
That's warm narwhal.
Yes,
Nice.
warm narwhal.
Dima, why aren't you a dedicated coach on interviewing.io?
A couple of reasons. One is time commitment. That's a lot to ask. When people ask me about this, I always say, hey, for me it's like philanthropy. In fact, I think, Grace, you're the only person I'm speaking with on this platform more than once. I almost always connect with people who want to connect with me, but I almost always say no for a repeat interview, because I feel like I could deal more good to this world if I talk to different people. And then I do think it's a philanthropic thing for me. I love sharing knowledge. And also there's an aspect of anonymous makes me open up better. If I'm speaking with a particular person multiple times in a row, I have to watch my language. I have to be super careful. There's some beauty in speaking with somebody anonymously, and like every third or fourth person, we don't quite connect. I mean, I could interview them, but our styles are different, and I'm kind of happy we don't need to know who we are. But also every, again, third or fourth person, maybe every second or third person, I really feel I can help the person. So I like the beauty of this.
Nice. What about somebody had a comment about having the round 3 of Grace and Dima being Grace interviews Dima.
Oh, it would be my pleasure.
You don't have to commit now, Mr. I only talk to people once, but yeah, moving on.
Let's do it.
If I don't get to that point, I will have made it.
I'm down for everything, honestly. As long as, look, guys, you're the best. Kevin, if you would have told me a year ago we're going to be doing this, I would have said that's too good to be true. Like, you're literally taking care of all the administrative and all this stuff and just letting me do my best for, 90 minutes straight. And I would do this every other week easily. I'll find time. If it takes me 10 hours, it's going to be tricky.
If you're not on System Design Meetup, you can follow Dima on LinkedIn and then join his System Design Meetup to get more of his great ideas. Okay, back to Q&A.
Yeah, it's actually embarrassing that it's slowing down because of all the work we're doing together, but I like it.
But still, if the people want to see you talk about consistent hashing for 9 hours straight, they can go to System Design Meetup and okay.
Why do people like consistent hashing so much? It's like a fancy nerdy topic to prove that you know some stuff. It's hardly differentiator. It's hardly useful thingy.
Okay, I don't know, but I'll answer your question with a question. Dima, do you always ask the same question when you conduct practice interviews? How many backup questions do you have if the candidate says they've seen the problem before?
Oh, actually, ask candidates up front what would they like to practice. When it's a practice interview, I look, when I used to do this seriously, we pretty much went through all grokking and then a few more problems that I know are not there. So I'm fairly confident I can ask any of those questions and I know the tips and tricks of each of them. Sometimes I tell people up front, hey, if you want it to be like a real interview, would you like to start from a non-question problem? I could totally ask the person, hey, so you speak SQL, NoSQL, what's the difference? Name me some names. Come up with a problem where one is a good fit and the other one is not. Why? What's a columnar database? What's a time series database? What's the difference? And I had sessions where the whole interview is talking like this for 40 minutes. And to me, it's a real interview. And if it's a real interview in a real company, I would have a hard time comparing candidates with whom we spoke about different things. So they're careful. But on interviewing.io, I can do whatever.
Right. That, correct me if I'm wrong, that's your most, if we look back at the data, that's your most common type of interview conversation.
Not in the past half a year.
Really?
Yeah, I think like if you take 2021, yes.
Right. Cool. Nice. Yeah, we should publish some of those. Anyways, next question. So we got what else looks interesting to you on here? There's a lot. I mean, people were talking about privacy.
So for privacy, there are plenty of questions. I would say as an interviewer, it's nice that you mentioned that. It's nice if we talk about how to mitigate this. But in most SD problems, and I won't get tired of saying this, in most SD problems, there is like the key part which you need to not miss. And whenever there's a many-to-many communication, when you see you have multiple producers, multiple consumers, and they have to somehow match one another, reducing fan out, reducing extra communication is almost always the most important part. The best possible privacy preserving solution would not prevent you from solving this problem. So if you talk about this, bonus point if you mention privacy, we can talk about this for 30 seconds to maybe 3-5 minutes. If you really, really want to push me into the privacy conversation, for certain companies, I would say Palantir maybe, that's a good idea. But for most engineering companies, I wouldn't say it's a red flag. But there's a special kind of candidate who views themselves as a user advocate and they refuse to talk technology. In my statistically significant sample, when you start pushing these people, they break. So to me, it would be like an orange flag. I need to actually ask this person some real questions.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Somebody just raised their hand. I think your name was Mira. Mira, if you had a follow-up question to what Dima is talking about, go ahead and raise your hand again. Or if you just want to say something, or Atif. Yeah. I saw Miras first, so we'll go you. Miras, go ahead.
Hi guys, thanks a lot for the session again. Yeah, I didn't catch the part when you mentioned about maybe only Palantir. I know you're using it as an example, but maybe Palantir are going to be concerned about the privacy part. You mentioned about when we have many-to-many from publisher to consumers, or?
So when you want to talk about privacy, or specifically when you want to talk about being like a user advocate, certain companies like it, others don't. Mm-hmm. I always think of Palantir as a company that cares about privacy because that's user, like people-based analytics is their bread and butter. I know for a fact Uber is an example of a company that really likes product thinking. So if you start, you can literally bullshit your way out of the interview with Uber if you talk to them about, hey, but if I order a car from this side of the street, but I'm on the other side and there's a one-way and the U-turn, you can talk about this for 15 minutes and it will be bonus points for you. Because you present yourself as an engineer who thinks about the user.
Right, because the nature of the company and the way how they do the business. Gotcha.
It's not about the nature. It's more like the values and DNA and stuff. Not all companies are user first, and there's no good or bad answer. So I would say it's important to be able to read your interviewer, but it's also important to do your research on the company. If the company is known to be user facing, especially end user facing, like social network outreach magnitude. If you know this company is pro privacy, then by all means, if you just ignore this topic like a total SP, you would get a negative point in your scorecard. Hey, this person just ignored the fact that what they might be asking, what they might be designing is problematic to the end user. So make sure you mention that. But if the company is like deep tech savvy, and it looks for like algorithms and complexities and stuff, if you spend half an hour of the 45 minutes interview on SD talking about privacy, that's a bad sign.
For sure.
Nice. Great question. All right. I saw another hand. It wasn't Miras. It was someone else. If you do have something to say, raise your hand again. Going once, going twice. Okay. So going back to the doc, added a and using the link at the end of the comments. Oh, great. So yeah, for the person that asked about seeing the doc later, great. I'll send that out. Thank you for putting that in there, Grace. I'm trying to think of the themes of these questions. There were a lot of privacy questions. So just while we're here, I don't know. I'll highlight some on the doc that are like maybe we want to talk about because they're related to privacy. So there's one that's highlighted in.
Hey, there's one question that caught my attention.
Yeah.
I can read it, but I can just talk about it. It's about why can't we just make requirements gathering simple? I think a lot of people are making this assumption, and I just don't believe it's true. SD is, when you know how to postulate the problem, you solved most of it. If you prepared well enough and if you know all the standard topics. So there's no magic bullet. There are no royal roads to collecting requirements, and it would depend on the interviewer. It would depend on what are they looking for primarily in the candidate. So yeah, it sounds like there should be some simple way to collect requirements, but it's not. And I think even thinking this way is actually setting you on the wrong path. It's not a problem in algorithms when you can assume it's a lead code problem, and you can first ask yourself, what's the function signature looking like? There it's important because it's a fixed problem with a fixed solution, fixed frame for the answer. System design is not like that.
Nice. It's a difference between engineering problems and design problems, which the guide goes over. Okay, I'm trying to think of these other questions, trying to see if if anything else looks interesting. Yeah, I think privacy was one of the biggest themes, at least in the ones that people shared. So that one we already kind of talked about, like when to address privacy. Some people like posted their approaches, and I almost wanted to see if you could just give them quick feedback on their approach. If you look at number 6 on the doc on page 6, it says, Dima, what do you think of this approach? I think it's a good idea to start from a user story. Sketch a girl in the ski resort, and she uses her phone. She registered on the app a couple weeks ago, and then she posts a pic about her skiing. Then she receives a like of the post. She checked who liked it. She sees the profile of the guy that liked it. And then they send out an invitation to have dinner with this guy together. And this guy accepted. So we need a mobile app for registration anytime, anywhere that allows people to post pics, like other people's posts, send an invitation, and then decline or accept the invitation. We have a domain, web page, client service. Also, we have a server and a database to store data. We then jump on details of each component and how data gets transferred between them. What would you think of that approach?
I think if you want to maximize the chance of having an L4 offer, that might be a good idea. I think what Grace did is actually more senior. So the setup that Grace decided for herself, like you spoke as a person who knows far beyond standard boxes, which is what is, I wouldn't say even encouraged. That's expected. At level 6, it's just expected. At level 5, it's just to your advantage.
Is it untrue that the more senior you get, the less structured these interviews become?
I believe so, but it's my personal opinion.
Because people were asking.
I would say, like, just as somebody who's trying to learn how to do these interviews better, I find the template to be kind of overwhelming. Like, you see a lot of people like go in a certain order, and I feel like it might stifle the conversation a little bit. Like, I want to make sure that I'm flexible to where Dima wants to go next, or where I think it's more important to go next. So that's why I didn't go into sort of like a template sequence there.
It's harder, but it's the better choice, Grace.
It is hard because, I think studying, like self-studying, go ahead. I use the template when I'm studying, I guess is what I'm saying, is like to understand a problem. I think it's a useful structure to break it down on your own. But I think so far I've done a couple, practice mocks, not just with Dima, with a couple other interviewers on interviewing.io. And I felt like it just kind of stifled me a little.
Nice. I think Justin has something to say. Justin, if it's relevant, definitely say it. And if not, let's do it too here. Let's hear what you got. Justin, you're on the line.
But you're muted.
No, he's got it.
Hey, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. First of all, thanks for putting on this event. This is great. So so I don't have any real experience with system design interviews, and it just had a question like, how do you know if the interviewer is really looking for more of like the product, kind of like answers regarding more of like the functional requirements and like digging into that versus like, what if the interviewer is actually expecting you to kind of design the like the data models and what the systems, how all the pieces of the systems are going to interact? Like, how do you kind of gauge that and know, you're hitting what the interviewer is looking for? I don't know if that question's not clear, I can try to clarify. But
Like, look, you just ask. You treat the person as your peer who's on the same team with you, and you ask away. It's a bit of an art to read the person you're speaking with, especially over the phone line, especially if you don't have the camera on. On an extreme levels of skill, you can kind of guide the conversation and make the other person think that it's their idea, but it's actually your idea that you planted in their mind. But overall, you just ask what they're looking for. There are tons of phrases, as Kevin likes to put it, exactly what to say. There are tons of exactly what to say style of communication where you could just phrase it nicely. Hey, I can go on into this, but let's do a quick check whether this topic is what you're most interested in, or we can probably go into there or here. What do you think?
Great. 10 out of 10. All right. Jim Beveridge, you're on the line.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for doing this. Couple of quick notes. So I actually like to put up an agenda when I'm being interviewed. I put up an agenda of what I'm planning so that I can agree not to dive into things too much that I don't care about. So Grace, it kind of goes hand in hand with what you said, because I want to control it. So I pick my agenda of the things I want to talk about, and then I put it up. And then I literally put a clock next to my monitor so that I can compare my current time and how much time has elapsed to what's on my agenda. As an interviewer, I've done dozens of system design interviews, and a lot, particularly at the L5 level, people lose track. I've seen people spend 25 minutes doing nothing but trying to figure out the parameters on the URL. And so it's really important to have in my mind, at least, to have some signals in front of you, like, okay, this is what I need to do. And even if I've not done a great job on this, I should move on and not rat hole. Thank you.
Great. Love that.
I have candidates sometimes who talk to me up front from the grounds of, all right, so thanks for your question. Here's what I'm going to do. And they paste a template with literally like timed responses. And I'm not sure if it's just me, but to me, it feels like they're trying to control me. And it's to me, it's just wrong. It's unnatural.
Oh, I definitely start out by saying, this is what I propose we talk about. Does that look good to you? Is there anything you want to add? In other words, at least for me, I make the agenda the beginning of a collaboration, as opposed to, this is my way, do it or the highway.
The value of the word proposed there. Yeah, that's beautiful. Love that.
There was one more question in the doc that I think I will relate to Grace in a moment, but let me take one minute and talk about something. So I think 10 years ago I was like a super analytics first person, and now I'm probably far more into empathy. And what I've learned over this transition is that people who are like nerdy, like I was a long time ago, we tend to look at constraints as fun challenges to work around. So basically, it's a psychological / philosophical thing. If you outline a template, that's okay if it helps you. But if you outline the template under the assumption, with the expectation that you're going to be holding yourself and me to this standard, to me, it's a sign that you're not too senior, because real life conversations at higher levels are always unstructured. So part of the interviews is for the candidate to demonstrate they're confident in this uncertain environment. So if for L3, L4, maybe L5s, I could work with that. For L6 plus, if you copy paste a template and literally hold yourself accountable, if you use it as an excuse, hey, I have this, I spent 5 minutes on this, it was 5.5 minutes, I have to move on. to me, that's a sign of immaturity. I don't think the person who speaks like this can be effective in a cross-team collaborative setting at like L6 plus.
This reminds me of what you say, that sometimes junior level candidates will reveal themselves by asking questions because they think they're supposed to ask questions. So, if I'm working on a data structure problem, I usually will clarify the problem. And then when they come in a system design interview and the person's like, a very cold interviewer's like, design a dating service. And they're like, I would like to clarify, am I supposed to design a dating service? And the person is like, wow, I am done. But that reminds me of what you just said. This idea that asking questions for the sake of following a rule when you don't actually understand why you're asking as junior and more senior, the more senior you get, expect the questions to be less specific and less targeted, and you have to figure out what the target is instead of clarifying it and have them do the work for you. The difference between a senior engineer and a junior engineer philosophically is that juniors cost you time and seniors save you time. So if you just apply that into an interview, you do the work for them, you make their job easier.
The litmus test here is jokes. If you're confident making a joke and playing it cool and moving and then resume as if nothing happened, you really, really can control the conversation. Most people either do it super awkwardly, but they shouldn't, or they try and fail and they think it's okay, but it's not. So there's a question in the chat that I think it's to both of us, but I think, Grace, you probably would be the better person to answer it. It has to do with whether you thought I was giving you hints.
Okay, let me try to find this.
Hold on. See, that's how my brain works. I don't memorize numbers.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't know whether you're looking at whether okay, but if the question is just like, did I think you were giving me hints?
Yeah. So as a candidate, as the person on the other side of the screen.
Yeah. I definitely feel Dima's subtle nudging along the way. I think I would put it that way versus tips. When you're nervous, not all the tips are gonna like land, I guess. But I think I definitely noticed or tried to be observant of when Dima was trying to kind of corral me towards a certain direction.
That's maps to my understanding. So what I would say is, I think so. If it's a hint, if I get the candidate a hint, then it's my duty to note it in the feedback flow that at this particular point the candidate needed a hint. And I deliberately did not give you any hints that are obviously hints to this degree. I wanted it to be a fair play. Primarily because I felt like it's going to be more fun to work through the problem together as opposed to So if you guys, the observers, if you guys think, guys and gals, that I was given hints, that's just my way to conduct a conversation. None of this, I think, qualifies for a real hint.
Yeah. How do they follow you, Dima? I think your handle is the same on all the platforms that you're on. What's your handle?
I'm unique Dima. When I went to Twitter, I typed in Dima and it said your handle must be unique. So I tried unique, but it was taken too. And then I combined the two and it worked.
Let's see. Yep, you're good. I'm trying to see if there's anything else interesting in here.
But I think it's both the contact info of me and of the. How do you self-identify, Grace? World's least famous welder, or what? World's most famous welder?
Wielding whirligigs.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's under all the videos we publish, so people can find us.
Definitely.
Yeah, you can see the work of these two great folks on part 1 of the guide, which comes out next Thursday. So we've done 2 hours now. This is an amazing 2 hours. I'm so proud of both of you. Next up, if you came today, we're going to be releasing a highlight video of Grace V1 versus Grace V2, showing her growth over time. So that'll be out in several weeks. If Grace and Dima feel like doing a V3 where Grace interviews Dima, we will do that. And if you liked this event, tell people about it. Whether that's online or IRL. And if you want good stuff, you can go to interviewing.io There's a lot of good stuff on there, whether it is mocks or negotiation or mentorship or dedicated coaching, which Grace did, or faster engineering hiring or great content, interviewing.io. Thank you and good night. Any last words from our talented folks, or do we just silently sign off with our signs? All right, everybody.
Kevin, you're great. With the negotiation workshops, you're awesome. I watch those and I always learn something new.
Thank you, Kevin.
Humbly
Everybody.
to the God of software engineering.
Yeah.
And a future God of software engineering. Peace out, everybody.